I'm gonna have to go through a whole um kind of Wi-Fi upgrade. It's
Oh
funny, like
no.
through StreamYard, I never have issues.
Hmm.
And doing OBS to Twitch for my machine, I do it through Restream as well, which I don't think that would cause any additional problems. Um, but it like crashes. And yesterday, it only crashes for like a couple seconds at a time.
Hmm.
But yesterday it crashed. I mean, probably 10 times in
Oh my
2
goodness.
hours. Yeah.
How do
So,
you like those longer streams? Or is that typical for you?
oh, that is not typical. And I've been really into streaming recently.
There's been a lot of
Um,
people that came back from
mhm,
that conference
and
and
I've
are
started
like,
streaming. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, a ton of people. I've been loving it. It's been a ton of fun. I've seen a little growth since I've done it too. So I like see people responding, seeing people
Nice.
show up, seeing new people come in, and it's yeah, I've just been loving it. So
Now, are you just streaming to Twitch? Or are you also streaming to YouTube?
I'm not. Yeah, good question. So I'm only doing YouTube occasionally, and part of it is interesting because YouTube you can't like Twitch has so many more interactions and things built in that it's a more
Hmm.
interactive directly platform. I'm doing a couple of them to YouTube, but there's also I haven't spent any time logistically trying to find a way to incorporate like YouTube chat in addition to Twitch chat because they're two separate things. So like some people grab
Hmm.
the actual chat windows out of the streams and just show them on their screen.
Hmm.
And anyway, I haven't decided like exactly what I want to do with that. So
Yeah.
um if I'm doing to YouTube right now, I'm doing it through StreamYard, which I've only done once since I've started doing this, spending
Okay.
most of the time on Twitch. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get back into streaming. Some of it's just time. There's
Yeah, if you
not
can
enough hours in the
no,
day.
never is. If you can, like, obviously repurpose it, like, work on something
Yeah.
that you would be working on anyway, but
I just
you're
don't work
definitely,
as
like
fast.
yeah, you're
That's the
definitely
only thing.
less
Yeah.
productive. And there's
Yeah.
also some times that, like, people help answer questions for me that I
Sure.
like, would have taken me longer to find on my own too, but it's definitely a net slower process
Mhm.
even with
Mhm.
help, so
Yeah. But I mean, you can to your point, you can look at it, what are the other added benefits,
mhm.
like in terms of building community and things like that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm trying to do is after I get done, maybe once a week, is spend an hour to go back and look at one or two of the streams and take notes on content because I've kind of
Mm.
been struggling to get YouTube videos out, and I think some of that's just not paying attention to all the things that I like have already. And I've always talked about this. Like, thing as a
Mhm.
content creator is like everything is content if you pay attention, and I
Yeah.
don't think I've been paying enough attention.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to take a little bit of time to like reflect back on streams. And so I watched one from last week where I was working with Chris Wicks and Ryan
Mhm.
Furr on Deals for Devs and doing like a code review. And it was
Yeah.
2 hours long. And then I've got like 10 video ideas from it. Now
Oh,
obviously I have
awesome.
to go record them. But
Sure.
anyway, so
That's awesome.
we'll see. Yeah. But it's been a lot of fun. I've been really enjoying it.
We should, or I should stream some of the 2-week build stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so what do you have a plan for that? For
For
what you're gonna build?
streaming?
No, for what you're
Oh,
gonna build.
I have changed my plan.
100 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you saw the chat conversation. Brad was like, "I can't do it because my kids are on spring break." And I was like, "Huh, that's a bummer." I realized, "Oh,
Your
wait,
kids are on spring
my
break too?
kids are on spring break too." So,
So you're still gonna do it?
I'm still gonna do it, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do an abbreviated,
Yeah.
project and just be really tight about scope. Because I mean, that's the whole point, right? Is people, is just trying to help people get
Mhm.
that tight scope and just do something, like,
Yep.
actually create and launch, and so, and then the intention is be careful to commit to it, but, is to, like, do this on a regular cadence so
Yeah.
that, like, when I'm being pushed to drop stuff, I work really well in these short sprints. It's when you give me a longer project over time, and
Mhm.
it's not that it's a big project, it's like you just need those focused chunks of work.
Yep.
So, I'm
You see
hoping that
more
this
time,
project
you
will help do that.
think you could do a lot more. It's hard.
Yes, but I mean, I think, focusing on that and then just the challenge, and I think mentally for me, just like, "Oh, it's 2 weeks, I can do it, like,
Yep.
focused work for 2 weeks. It's when you were saying, "Oh, this project's gonna take 6 months," that
Mhm.
starts to feel overwhelming, or to your point, you think you have more time to do it
Yep.
than you actually do, and then you end up cramming it into the last month anyways, which is not fun for anybody.
Yep. I'm excited about it. I'm gonna go. I don't know if I talked about this before. I'm gonna go down the route of developer interviews. So I bought the domain
You bought a domain.
interviewmastery.dev. I did.
Nice. Oh, that's a great one.
Um,
That's a
I think it's
great
cool.
domain.
Yeah. So I need to. I don't know if it's fair to do this now, but I need to get some notes over to designer for designing the landing page, just
Mhm,
like
mhm.
general copy, and I'll go back and update this
Yeah,
and just kind of break it down. But I need to get that to him so I can have it from him around
yeah.
that time or in time enough. And then I'm going to do two things. One is a free cheat sheet. So, like, or a worksheet. So, a worksheet is
Mhm,
something you do before going into an interview, and it'll have questions like, what are your three projects that have been most impactful? What are three challenges you've worked on? Like that sort of thing, just so they have an organized set of notes to take in
mhm.
with them.
Yeah.
And then the actual paid product would be the course. And this will either be text based or video based.
Mhm.
And it'll be like a deeper dive into all the things that advice and things that I've learned for myself and other people and stuff about how to be successful in
Yeah.
tech interviews. So I'm excited about it.
Uh, Not that you need more work or want my
Or do I?
unsolicited advice, but one thing that would be really cool that Kent does with some of his course releases is he interviews other developers. So,
Yeah.
like, Sean
Mm,
Day or Danny Thompson, they would be great people
yeah.
to pull in to just talk about some of their hacks,
Hmm.
and then not that you need additional influencer credibility, but they do
Yeah.
have that wider audience reach.
That's a really good point. I like that. That would be a super good like promo section
Mhm.
on there too, like a section for like tips from, and then using
Yeah.
some big brand names.
Well, I mean, like, Shonda Hair Talk at that conference was
Yeah.
fantastic, talking about,
Transferable
adjacent skills,
skills.
yeah,
Yeah.
transferable skills, and so, like, that would also be something great to highlight on your worksheet,
Hmm.
like, "These are other
That
skills that I have."
Yep. That is so a lot of what she
Mhm.
talked about is stuff that was so top of mind for me and
Yeah.
already like in the thought process for this. So there's a lot of overlap with what she said with what I was already planning, which is
Uh-huh.
um so great. I mean, like it resonates in a way that like, okay, well, I'm at least on the same page as someone else who is having similar
I'm not
thoughts in
just
the
making
industry.
this
So
up.
yeah.
Um, I did have one other thought. Not that you want my
Mhm.
thoughts,
I want
and
all
then
the
we can
thoughts.
officially start. You could easily do an upgrade to have somebody do resume review.
Yeah, I've
So
thought about
you,
multiple
um,
versions of something like that. Yeah.
s for the 3 people that are watching right now, I think they're us. Um,
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
One of our mutual friends is currently on the job market, and you gave a resume review, and they were excellent points that I'm
Hmm.
not sure I would have caught in my own resumes. Just making sure you use action words and,
Hmm.
like, things that, people are like, it is the same thing, but it's not.
Hmm.
You're
Yep.
describing the same work, but you're saying, like, impact. So,
Yep.
if you're talking about somebody building a remix site versus somebody building a remix site, the difference is you can say, "This transformed the company, and now they use this as a core piece of their workflow."
Hmm.
That's completely different than just saying, "I built a remix site."
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so it's funny, just before we got on this call, I actually recorded a 1-minute video of that resume review, which our mutual friend, this is public, so is Brad, the other one of the
Okay.
other co-hosts of the podcast. And I asked him if he would mind if I created that resume review into a YouTube short.
Oh,
Because I think
awesome.
that would be a super fun series to do like
Yeah.
developer resume reviews in 1 minute. And
Yeah.
it's very fat, like it's hard to get it down to 1 minute.
Yeah.
But at least gives me the opportunity to get some of my main feedback across and give other people like that they could pause and zoom in on the text or like
Sure.
whatever if they wanted to.
What a
But
great
yeah,
promo for what you're doing.
yeah. And I may just like maybe I do that as part of the promo thing too. I think one of the things I would like to include in the course content is taking a resume, maybe like Brad's, and just
Mhm.
giving my take on like not just the advice, but also here's some exact sentences that I made change to give
Mm,
people
mhm,
hands-on like feedback of like,
mhm.
here's what you could consider type thing.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you wanna officially go live?
We can. Yeah. I think we should also keep all of that too, so we can
Yeah.
record our intro and then probably just, if you're okay with it, I'll probably just segue you into
Okay.
the tech behind what you built,
Sweet.
and
Yep. Cool.
then that could kind of flow. Like Ashley could piece that together, and that'll
Yep.
flow anyway.
Awesome.
And you want to do the convex shout out as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll do that right after the intro.
Sweet.
So for the 3 people, there'll be an awkward break. Then we'll resume our
That's right.
conversation.
3 people are us. If anybody is here, listening, and
Say
let us know
hi.
on
Let us know
YouTube
where you're
or
at.
Twitch. Yeah, this is a new, like, we're having to build up platforms from scratch. So
I think it'll be good.
I think so too. We had
Long
a
one.
great one, the first one. We had
Yeah.
several people join and hang out. So cool. All right, I will kick us off if you're ready.
Yeah.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web development and design with a little bit of zest. In this episode, we are going to talk about several fun things, including TypeScript, enums. Are they good? Are they bad? What in the world is HTMX? We're going to talk about the 2-week product challenge that Amy and I and others are going to participate in, and whatever else comes up.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compress.
What's up, everyone? My name is James Q. Quick, and I am a developer, speaker, and teacher.
Hello, my name is Amy Dutton, and I am a lead maintainer on the Redwood JS core team. And today we are joined by a fantastic sponsor with Convex. If you've never heard of Convex, they are the backend for founders. They are the application platform for product obsessed founders. And the cool thing is we actually interviewed James Cowling on the podcast. And I believe if you're listening to the audio version, that's already been released. If you're joining us live, it still hasn't gone up yet, but you can maybe find it in the backlog. But one thing that I did want to highlight that I thought was pretty cool. So Convex is a backend platform, and James did a fantastic job of highlighting how you can use AI with this. So a lot of times if you're using ChatGPT, you can ask it the same questions 5 times. It's going to give you 5 different responses. So you need a source of truth for all of your information and for all of your data. So databases and backends are not going anywhere anytime soon, even in the age of AI. And one of the things that Convex does is it provides you those tools so that you can have a single source of truth. So check that out at convex.dev. Thanks to Convex for sponsoring.
So we've talked a little bit about what we're planning on building during the 2-week product challenge, which maybe if you're listening to this on the actual podcast, we're probably past the challenge. So keep an ear open for updates on that as we go forward.
Yeah. I was
But
gonna
Amy,
say
you
sign
built
up
a
for the next
tool.
cohort.
Yes, sign up for the next cohort, and that'll be like, go ahead and intro that. So you built a tool to kind of track this. People can sign up, they can post their progress, etc. So tell us a little bit about what you built, and then I'm curious to get into the actual tech stack behind it.
Yeah, so I was trying to decide, do I build this on Discord and kind of hack automations within Discord so that people can post updates and things like that? I love Discord. I have it open all day. And there are several servers that I try to participate in. The hard part that I've always found is being able to go back and find things. And
Mm.
sometimes if there's tons of different channels, it's just hard for me to keep track of everything and maintain those conversations. So one thing that I wanted to do with this project is to give somebody like a profile page or a project page where you could say, hey, this is what I built in 2 weeks. And here's the log of what I created. And then I wanted people to be able to go in and comment and support and encourage. I also wanted to have kind of a streak like feature. So if you're posting updates every day, not to make people feel guilty if something comes up, life comes up.
Mhm.
If you just say, hey, I wasn't able to work on this today, like that counts as an update. And so there is a leaderboard just to say, hey, did you make an update today? So there's a combination of tech there with the website. There is a Discord server that will consume a custom RSS feed. So as people are making updates and those get posted, you will get notifications within Discord about those. But then the idea is you would jump over to the website and be able to comment and support people there.
That's really cool. This is the good thing and bad thing about Amy is the new actual project for everything, which is great, but it becomes so much work. We've like joked about this a ton. But it's such a good idea. I wanted to. One of the things you mentioned earlier was like doing 2 week challenges on an ongoing basis. Like I just think
Mhm.
about if you did 8, 10 week challenge or 2 week challenges in a year or 10 or like
Mhm.
whatever it is. Think about how many small things you'd build and how much better you would get at shipping something. And I
Yep.
love that idea.
Yep. Well, there's I mean, a few bonuses there. Is you think, "Oh, man, 2 weeks, that's such a small amount of time," which is true, but the idea is that you keep the scope tight and crispy. So, you're
Mhm.
not trying to launch an entire platform necessarily. You're just focusing on what can you accomplish within those 2 weeks. Now, I do have some ideas in my project backlog. I mean, of all the domains and everything that I've bought, of things that are gonna take longer than 2 weeks to build. And so if you're listening thinking, "Man, like, that sounds fun, but I wanna have more to show than just a bunch of tiny projects." I would say string them together, which is what I'm planning on doing. So, I've had several different ideas that I'm trying to decide what I'm gonna do in the 2 weeks, but there's a good chance the project I'm leaning towards, I'll just do the design work. I will scope it down, so I'm only designing out the app, and that's all I'm gonna deliver at the end of 2 weeks,
Okay.
and then hopefully I can use that to, validate the project idea and see if it is good. So I'm gonna send it off to a few people and get feedback on it, and then if I feel comfortable moving forward, then the next 2 weeks I'll focus on just the front end. I'm not even gonna worry about the back end, I'll just focus on the front end, and then if it makes it that long, then the next 2 weeks will be the back end and then trying to tie up loose ends. So it could end up being a 3 or 4-month project, but I'm just gonna focus in on 2-week chunks.
That may be a good approach for me to take too. Like if I'm doing a landing page and a free cheat sheet, I could do that first
Mhm.
and build out the course in the following
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's good. Good way to approach it. And I love doing that for technical stuff too, like actually building out a new platform or something. That's one of the
Mhm.
things I continually want to do better at is just like have an idea, keep it simple, and build it. Like get more
Mhm.
practice actually writing code on a consistent
Yeah.
basis.
Well, so you asked about the tech. I was gonna say the 2-week build.com project has almost turned into a 2-week project in and of
Yeah.
itself. Actually, I spent a little bit more time on it, but trying to get all of that up and running. So there it is almost a platform in and of itself. It's a remix project. Ooh, controversial.
Controversial. It is.
I'll explain
Controversial,
my
but because
okay.
Amy works at Redwood in
I
case people
can
miss that.
I can explain, the decision there, and I'm using Supabase on the back end, and I can explain the decision there as well, and I think that's it in terms of, like, big chunks of tech.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. So what's I feel like we've kind of done this before with doing remix or you doing remix instead of Redwood. And I assume the
Mhm.
answer is kind of like not competitive analysis, but just like understanding of the landscape of like, what is it like to build something in a different tech stack? Is that kind of where you approach this from?
Yeah, so I've actively built projects in all the things. And some of it is the competitive piece of it. So I've built a project on Next trying to figure out their React server components. I've built an Astro project. And actually, if you go to twoweekbuild.com, the version you see up there right now is an Astro project.
Oh,
The
it is. Interesting.
platform, and then I
Okay.
moved it over to Remix, and I can explain where
Okay.
the breaking point was for me. And then I've also built Svelte projects. I've also built, obviously Redwood projects.
Mhm.
So right now, the big thing in the JavaScript ecosystem is kind of that React server components. There's so many different ways to render content, whether you're doing on the client
Yeah.
side or the server side, and how you deliver information and what people are able to see at what point during the build process. So right now, Redwood really shines when you're talking about a SPA, a single page application. So
I have something to bring up in a minute.
yes,
That's
please.
very interesting, but keep
Is
going.
it about Remix? Because
It
they
is
just
about
announced this
remix.
functionality. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought that
Funny.
was we'll come
Funny,
back to that in a
funny.
second.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
will. So, but anyways, that's where Redwood shines. And I've built several single page applications that it really is fun to work with when you're talking about that. The problem though is when you need something like the 2-week build project where I want to have like OG tags. So somebody shares a link to their profile page on Twitter and you get a nice little OG image there, or they share a link to their project and you get OG tag information, or like say Google being able to surface that information so that it's searchable. that's one of the hardships that Redwood has. Now, it won't always have this problem because we're calling it the Bighorn epoch. With this next release of code, you will be able to do all of those things. And it will use React Server components to be able to speed up that first load, increase your performance, get all that good OG goodness and juice to the browser. But right now, since I have to launch this project right now, it's not an option. So that's why I went with Remix. I did start in Astro, and some of that, James, was just because you've been going on about how great Astro is. So I'd encourage people, if you are interested in Astro, to check out James's course. The URL is
Oh, my course, astrocourse.dev. Thank
there
you
you
for the
go.
plug.
Yeah, so check that out. But the breaking point for me, and I'm sure you could probably work around it a little bit better than I could, was when I was trying to do these app-like things with the update page. But then you are creating all these different forms that would have to then go to the backend API. And it just felt a little clunky to me in how that code worked. And one of the things that's interesting, and maybe Astra has a workaround that I just don't know about, but Remix has a function that I didn't even realize existed until this project called use fetcher, which basically lets you fetch data just like you would with a regular JavaScript API, but it kind of serves that purpose of not feeling like you have, like making it feel to the user you're not making a round trip with the server to be able to submit that information and return it. So just some of the app-like features I wanted to try and get all of that working within Remix. Yeah, there you go, Brad.
Had a couple of people join us in the chat. Zamthor, what's going on? Brad heard Remix and came running, which is
Yeah,
great.
I did.
He said use fetcher is dope, turns Remix into a full client side thing. So with Astro, like you can obviously do all the spa things that you'd want. You could load in whatever React, Angular, Vue, Svelte, or I still don't know if Angular is, but Vue, Svelte, etc. And you can do all those things, but it's probably not as nice of a cohesive thing as what you're talking about with Remix. And the one thing that's interesting, and I'm not ready to move us in this direction yet, or maybe we can, I don't know, but is people have been talking about the integration of HTMX with Astro, because Astro now supports partials, which if you go back to the days of templating languages like EJS and things and Node, you had like partials, which is basically just components that were templates that you could reuse in different pages. And so I haven't actually used this, but Astro supports those templates. And the way maybe we can do a little HTMX. The way HTMX works, and I've gotten slightly into this, and it's really interesting, is it basically does a lot of things automatically for you to handle interactions with the server. And the idea is some sort of trigger on the front end, whether it's a button click or you hover on something or whatever, is going to make an API request to the back end, and you just tell it where to make the request, and it does it for you. So it abstracts that away. And then what it does is it assumes that API request is going to return back markup, like HTML. And then you can tell it where to put that HTML. So if you have something like a to-do list and you want to load the to-do items on the client, you can say on page load or on the load of this DOM element, make a fetch request to this URL, and then take that markup and replace or put it inside of a given div where the to-do should go. And it's pretty interesting and pretty powerful. I still haven't gotten like really deep into it, but that's like a potential use case that starts to maybe make some of what you're talking about a little bit easier.
That's interesting. And I mean, all that stuff is like really beautiful within Spa. So I'm excited about some of the stuff that, like I said, that Redwood's creating in order to make that dev experience like really seamless. Let me talk a little bit about the back end piece of it, and some of the decisions I made with Supabase. So the reason I went with Supabase is because they have an auth provider out of the box. They also have storage out of the box. So those were two features that I wanted to incorporate. I didn't want to have to try and figure out another integration, whether that was Amazon or Cloudinary. So I ended up going with Supabase for that, or trying to work in Clerk or roll my own auth. I just wanted to use an existing solution. The fact that that's all rolled up into Supabase. So that's why I went with that.
Yep.
But yeah, that's
Supabase
the
is
tech stack.
awesome. Yeah.
Well, and some of I went in the deep end with Supabase too, because so I'll explain two things really quick. I figured out how to get your own instance running on DigitalOcean, and
Supabase. So the
yeah,
self-hosted version. Okay.
I am
How
using
hard
the
was that?
hosted version. So there's a great write-up on DigitalOcean. If you go to their marketplace, there's like a pre-configured option. So if you run through it, I want to write blog posts for all these. I have like text notes
Yeah, it
on my
never ends.
computer of all these things that I'm like, I need to document this process before I forget because I don't want to have to go through it again. But if you go to DigitalOcean on their marketplace, there is a Supabase install or instance that makes it really easy. There's a like almost like a text document within the description. It does a great job of explaining everything, but you need to make sure that you read through it and follow it exactly. Because there were certain things that I was like, "Oh goodness, it's breaking. I can't get this to work." And then I'm like, "Well, there's no documentation anywhere. I might as well go back and read through this description one more time." And I realized, "Oh, I missed this little sentence or I missed this password or something like that." So, it was a little tedious and took a little bit more time than I wanted to, but it's also like if I had been really careful about reading through all the notes, I don't think it would have been as hard
Hmm.
to get it up and running.
So you're
Now,
saying you don't pay attention?
well, it's just skimming. It's like, "Oh, I get this. Yeah, I'll just skim through it."
Yeah.
Is the thing. But one thing I will point out, which is why I'm still on the hosted version with Supabase, is that you don't get all of the features in, say, a DigitalOcean instance, a self-hosted instance, as you would on the hosted version. The biggest there's two main features I think that are missing. One is edge functions. You don't have that because all of that stuff runs like on the Supabase's servers. So you can still have like database functions, but in terms of their edge functions, you don't get that. You also don't get access to projects and organizations. So you really only have one project running on your DigitalOcean instance. And there are people that have tried to do workarounds where basically that Supabase instance is running inside of a Docker container. So if you're really versed in Docker, I'm sure you can get Docker
Yeah.
to do what you want it to do, but I'm not really versed in Docker. So it was just kind of like, sure, I'll try this command and see what happens.
It's so funny for me. Anytime I see Docker, I back away. And I feel like sometimes I need to be more open. Like I literally just run. And it's not like I can't figure it out. Like I'm a smart
Yeah.
person, just like you. Maybe I'm
It's not where I
older and
want to invest my
grumpier.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I should be more open.
Uh,
Someone in the chat mentioned Laravel or Livewire in the
uh-huh.
Laravel community. I think to be able to like load in markup, we were talking about like
Oh.
HTMX, and I think the comparison was that.
Mhm.
And Laravel's again. So I think I want to do a stream at some point. I've never used PHP I've never used PHP, but to do just a video where I try to build something or a live stream where I build something with Laravel because of how much people hype it up. Be really
Yeah.
interesting to see.
You should get Chris or Cap to come on.
Yeah.
Cap would be good because she just finished their boot camp. But I know they're
They're
both big proponents.
what boot camp is she?
She did like
Yeah.
the
What?
Laravel boot camp, I think.
Oh, like she just
Yeah.
learned it. So Chris
Mhm.
has been huge on Laravel for a long
Right.
time. So she just
Right.
learned. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and so for anybody listening, they're married,
Yeah.
and
Power
the
couple.
thing, yeah, the tweet was like, "After so many years of marriage, I finally got her to."
Oh, nice. I missed that. That's so awesome. Yeah,
to, to, to learn Laravel.
one of the best couples for so many
Mhm.
different reasons. They're so awesome.
Yep.
Brad also commented on Docker and said, "Yeah, like that's just the kind of thing I just run every time." And going back to like a 2-week challenge, like what if I spent 2 weeks trying out new tech stacks to build something small? Like that would be a great challenge for me as well to get more visibility and stuff. Kind of like what you talked about you've been doing.
Mhm. Yep. So I think, so I was just gonna say I went deep into Supabase and trying to build out relationships on certain things and adjust queries for that. I also went deep into setting up custom SQL functions to run.
Oh, did
So
you?
that was kind of an interesting process. The nice
Yeah.
thing, though, I will say about Supabase is that if you go to their SQL editor tab, that's where they've introduced AI into the application. So
Mhm.
you can tell AI, this is the relationship, this is the information that I'm trying to pull. Tell me what query I need to write. And it'll help you write the query. And
Mhm.
then if the query comes back and there's an error, you can also click on a button that was like, ask AI to help you resolve the issue.
Mhm.
So it's kind of
That's
like
cool.
50-50, but I did use a lot of ChatGPT and Perplexity AI and all the AIs trying to get all those functions running. But part of it, so for example, let me just give you a quick instance. I mean, I know you have an emoji picker on your course, so you might be able
Hmm.
to speak to how you did this. But one of the features with the site is that you can do a emoji response, but I basically provided all emojis. So you obviously don't want, like, it might be different if you're only picking 5 emojis, but you can pick from the library. And so being
Where's the
able to,
library? What, like a library of emojis?
I grabbed an emoji.json file. And so it's like
Oh,
two
they
or
just gave them all to you.
300, yeah, 2 or
Oh, cool.
300 different
Yeah.
emojis. So you can pick whatever, however you want to respond.
Okay. So you're
And
building
so
Discord is what you're doing?
why? Why do I do these things? So if say somebody has 1,000 responses, you don't want to return 1,000 entries and
Mhm.
send that over to the server to count the number, or I guess you could count it on the server. But like still, there's no need for that when you can just have Supabase return those counts for you. That's going to be the fastest way to get that information back. It's also going to be beneficial. So to know, okay, did the logged in user, did they use this emoji or not? So I need a true or false value, whether they had an entry.
Mhm.
And so with
Yep.
Supabase, you can create a custom function that will return all of that data for you in a single call. So I wrote the
Mm.
query for that, which is a little complicated, but I got it to work. So it's one of those things that once you get it to work, you're like, oh, I'm the smartest person in the world. But the
Yep.
process to get there is not always fun.
Yep. And I went the easy route because of not investing the time to learn more about something like that. So I ended up making 2 queries, which so I had a what's it called? A many to many like intermediary table or
Mhm,
whatever, but reactions and posts, I guess. I have to go back and
mhm,
look. And so I make 2 queries to get data. I get the reactions per for the given post, and then I also query the reactions on the post from the user, if that makes sense. I think
mhm.
that's what it was. And then I just merged those 2 pieces of information. So obviously it would be ideal to do that closer to the database and only make 1 database call.
Yeah.
But it like at least for what we were building, it doesn't matter. But that's a very sophisticated way to do it, which definitely I think is the right way.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I can understand. Well, and let me just point this out. So you asked, "Hey, Amy, are you doing this for competitor analysis?"
Hmm.
And that's the type of thing that I feel like you don't really get into until you decide I'm going to build a project on this and I need it to do this thing.
Mhm.
Like you can go through tutorials and get a high level view of all the CRUD operations and how different pieces work, but
Yep.
until you go down the rabbit hole of I have these really complex computations or relationships I need to establish, it becomes a little bit maybe superficial when you're
Yeah.
trying to figure out what those like nuances are.
Absolutely. That's been really the one of the big reasons that I've wanted to do longer term relationships with sponsors is so I have an opportunity to get deeper and not just do a one tutorial video where it's probably not going to get deeper into the product. So
Mhm.
I love that. And I know I've talked about this a couple times, but I'll do a quick shout out for dealsfordevs.com, the like MVP landing page, which doesn't have deals on it, but does have the subscribe workflow working. And this is a custom workflow that Chris Wicks built and I guess kind of supervised, I guess. And then we did code reviews and stuff. And it's using resend for emails and it's using Next.js and Zeta to store the actual subscriber info in. So the cool thing, it has built in like confirmation as part of the flow. So you go to subscribe, it will save you in the database and annotate you as unsubscribed or on I guess verified at that point, both of those, and then it will send you a link. It'll generate a unique token for you. And we debated about this, like, does that token need to be secret? And what we decided is basically no. And if you think about this, if you go to update your email preferences for most things, you don't actually have to log into your account. You just like click the link that says like update preferences or unsubscribe or whatever. So we generate a public token. We store that in the database with the email. It then calls resend to send you a confirmation email that includes a link that goes to, I think it's slash validate, and then the token is in the query param. And then that hits the API. It does the validation to make sure that token is actually valid, and then it redirects to the preferences page where you can choose which type of newsletter categories are you interested in?
Nice.
And what we'll do is use that once a month to then create a curated list of deals relevant to those categories to send you on a monthly basis. And that'll be cron jobs and Vercel and still using resend for email. So it's been a super fun project to work on overall, but especially to see like Chris doing work and then other people are starting to show interest and get involved as well. So it's kind of like it's kind of become a community project.
That's awesome. Do you have a cron job running to clean out the database? Like of all these people
Which
that are like unverified?
if yeah, so we don't now, but it's
Okay.
something we didn't specifically talk about for unverified. We talked about like if people unsubscribe specifically,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
could leave them in the database like temporarily, and or we could just get rid of them. But we did talk
Mhm.
about having like cleanup jobs to go in and clean up old records. And like that sort of thing honestly doesn't matter for a long time, right? Like you have to
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
a decent amount of people trying to subscribe and not confirming before having that cleanup really matters. Not to say that you shouldn't do it, because yeah, there's
Right.
no reason to have those records. Absolutely. But that's kind of the fun thing, is like we can do those things piece by piece, especially as we can try to get ahead and not
Yep.
experience them. But it's the kind of thing where like, hey, we experience something like that and then we go and add updates. So
Yep. Yep. Well, and how many problems do programmers solve that aren't really
never exists.
problems?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
at least yet.
Yep. So that's been a lot of fun um to work on.
So, what is your 2-week build challenge that you're gonna do? Did you
Well,
say?
do we need
Did you say?
to yeah, the interview thing or the yeah, interviews.
Oh, right, right. That was at the very beginning. I
Yeah,
didn't
so
realize
that's
that
already
was the
in.
tie-in.
So cut. Yeah, that would have been nice. I do want to do, I think, more like a technical build in the future, but
Okay. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
great idea.
yeah.
Sweet.
So I did do some research into TypeScript enums. I don't know if you know that there's discrepancy
I'm
on
trying to
whether or not you should use them. And where this started, so enums, for people who aren't familiar, is a way to define like a specifically defined list of options for a given thing. And so
Mhm.
for deals for devs, I created an enum for the categories. So if you choose the category enum and then do dot, it gives you IntelliSense for the
Mhm.
categories that we have and only those categories. So it's ebooks and courses and tools and that sort of stuff. And I posted on Twitter like, hey, enum is a great way to like represent a predefined set of options for something. And then I got a couple of very blunt, and this is what turned me off a little bit, to be quite honest, but a couple of very blunt, like never use enum in
Ugh.
TypeScript comments. And then there was references to a video from Matt Pocock. Pocock is the TypeScript
Uh-huh.
wizard. He created
Yes.
TotalTypeScript.com. He is amazing. And I
And
eventually
a
got around.
nice guy.
He is super nice. Yeah, we got
Yeah.
to hang out with him in London at
Mhm.
the conference that must not be named, but he is super awesome, super smart, all the things. And so I went and watched the video, and I can kind of talk you through the details, but I'm in no way saying he's wrong. My takeaway is that most of that stuff is preference. There was very little
Mhm.
that seemed like super convincing to me of TypeScript enums being noticeably dangerous. Again, I openly admit he knows more TypeScript than I will ever know. That's also part of my feedback, and I can kind of mention this in a second. So what the biggest weird thing that I didn't know that actually is a problem, at least especially if you don't know it, is if you define an enum, you can define it with key and value pairs. So if you have a key of uppercase tool, the string tool, you can have a value that's lowercase tool. So you can differentiate like what's the actual value that you get from the enum that you select. If you do that, and then you do object.values, so you want to get the actual like strings to list them in a drop down menu, for example, which is what we do. It works just like you would expect. So you do object.values and you pass in the enum. But if you do not define explicitly what the values are for the keys, it does some weird things. So in theory, what it does is it creates an object where the key of uppercase tool gets automatically a value of also uppercase tool. What happens is when you do object, it's either object.keys or object.values. I'd have to go back and check. It also throws in this weird thing where it adds the indices of those keys. So if you have two keys in your enum, it also adds in 0 and 1 as the indices for those keys. And so if I were to do that and then iterate through those keys or values, again, I can't remember which, and did them in a select menu, you would see tools, ebooks, 0, 1. Obviously not what you want. And so that is like, first and foremost, that is the thing that like definitively doesn't make sense. If you know it's there, you can get around it and just define the values, etc. So that is one thing openly like confusing. I know this is a little long, but I had a good time like diving into this. So then Matt mentions like one thing you can't do with an enum is if you define a function with a property type or a parameter type of an enum, you can't just pass in the string representation of that enum to it. So if you have an enum with a property of uppercase tool, you can't just pass in the string of uppercase tool and have it be read in as an enum, which I don't think you should. I think the reason we have enums is so you're not hard coding strings. So I like get just my preference. Like I don't think that's the thing that you should be able to do. And then he also mentioned you can't have a separate second enum that has the same key value pairs and pass in a value of enum 2, even if it's the same as the value of enum 1 and the parameter is defined as enum 1. I don't think you should be able to do that either. That like seems the way to do it. So
Fragile.
it does to me, in my personal opinion. None of these things are like hills I'm going to die on. This is just my preference. And then he showed, and I didn't know about this, a way to do this in with a POJO, a plain old JavaScript object, and you define a regular object with key value pairs, and then you can use as const after that. Do you know what as const is used for in TypeScript?
I have seen it. I've never used it.
Okay.
Because I just don't feel comfortable with it, you know?
Yeah. So we have Jordan, who's in the chat, is saying, "Oh, this again." So I talked about this on my stream yesterday. So if you use the const keyword, so const person equals, and then you have an object with a property of name. Const means you can't reassign that variable to some other value. You can't point it to another memory in another address in memory. So if you say const person equals object, you can't then go say person equals a separate new object, but you can go person.name equals and assign that to something else.
Okay.
So you could say person.name is new name instead of James as it was originally. So as const means it's completely locked down and you can't change it.
Okay.
So you can't even access those properties. Trying to sum this up, sorry, it's a little bit long. The thing he did there is have 2 lines of TypeScript that derive the enum type or the equivalent of an enum type for that object using these 2 lines of TypeScript that use some keywords that I don't know. And so it works. It does the things that he wanted to do, but a little bit of pushback for me is like I'm not as well versed in TypeScript. And so I don't know what those 2 lines are. And that may be a little more confusing for other people that are newer to TypeScript too, versus like enums, you just have it built in. The only downside for me that I really saw is just the fact that it generates those extra values in the indices of the key value pairs. But again, openly admit, much better TypeScript developer than I will ever be, knows more about that. It's just a different perspective, I think, that I bring to the table. And I was just initially turned off by the comment saying definitively never use TypeScript enums. And I'm like, that's just not all that helpful.
Yeah, it always depends, right?
Yeah, or it's just preference and it just really doesn't matter that much. Like I think I have a very valid perspective. And we talked about this yesterday. Anytime people start with absolutes, I'm skeptical because there are rarely many of them that actually make sense.
Yeah. No, I think that's what you're talking about. There's so many different ways to do it. And you can write like you've seen code golf where it's like I'm going to try and write a line of code in as few characters and lines as possible. And it's like, wow, good job, good flex. But if nobody else can use your code or know what it does, then that's not helpful. And you mentioned already you're trying to make this a community project. And so if that's going to be a barrier to entry to being able to pull more developers into the project, then that's an even bigger problem to me than whether you're using an enum or not.
Could be. Yeah. Yep. So that's my
your
rant of the day.
You should start with that.
I know. Ricardo said if you Google it, you'll find more arguments against the use of enums. Don't disregard this that easily. Yeah, that's totally fair. If there's more that I don't know, that's also totally fine. But I think one thing we have to keep in mind with this stuff is people love to be opinionated and they love to go down really deep to find reasons why certain things don't work. I have yet for anything that I've discovered for me personally to determine that enums are bad. Not saying there's not more I don't know, not saying there's not more things out there to consider. Most likely, whatever those detailed things are probably don't have that much of an effect on my opinion. Not that I'm not open to it. That's just my guess.
Let me ask a question. Because I feel like I'm about to be judged. It's okay. A lot of times I'll put just the strings. So, like, if you're talking about a category, I'll say
Mhm.
category is equal to, in quotes, ebooks or courses or whatever. And then it just gives me the TypeScript stuff. I mean, granted, it's not a value that you can loop through in a drop down, but is there anything wrong with that code? I mean, to me, TypeScript is just kind of defining your code. It's not really writing, like, it's not an executable part of your code.
Yeah. So you're saying, like, if you were to define a function that accepted a string parameter of
Yeah.
category, you
And it can
just
only
pass
accept
in
these strings. Yep.
how do you define that it only accepts those strings?
So you would say so like say you have a variable where you're trying to say that this course is whatever that type is. So you'd say like const course type. And then when I'm defining the type on it, I'd say colon, and then you just put the string value. So you'd say in quotes, ebooks, pipe,
Yeah.
books, pipe, video, whatever. Um, Now you can't use that in your code. I can't loop over it.
Mhm.
But when I'm writing code, it does ensure that the only values that get passed in are one of those 3 or 4 strings.
Gotcha. Someone actually just posted this on Twitter as well. I think semi challenging, which is totally fine. Um, so you can define you can even define a type that way too, where you can use the pipe
Mhm.
operator to say this thing has to be this value or this value, etc. I think some people are saying in the chat like that can get messy to maintain. I think this is one of those things like it doesn't matter until it does, and maybe you hit that
Yeah.
limitation. And the reality is you could probably write a bunch of code and kind of never hit that limitation. For me personally, I think enums are cleaner to have that thing defined in a way that has its own type versus inside of specifically what you mentioned of defining it inside of parameter type, because you can't reuse it. You can't do the other things that I mentioned.
Mhm.
And also, I think that's just my personal preference of like,
Mhm.
if we're going to define that somewhere, we should define it as its own type. And then Ricardo is saying you can also derive an enum from that using types as well. So you could still define that initially
Okay.
like that and then get derive basically an enum equivalent from that on top of it. The thing I don't know is if you go to pass in a parameter and your function knows that it's only these couple of options, if you start to open a string, will it automatically in VS Code give you IntelliSense for what those
Mhm.
options are? It might. The one thing I know works is if you have an enum and you type that enum and go dot, you definitively get the list of the different properties that you
Mhm.
can have, and then you're not having to um, you're definitely not having to manually type it all out. Ricardo says it does, so it seems like very similar functionality. So this again, like this wouldn't be me telling somebody not to do it unless it's like my code base and I should have control over it. It's just personal preference, I think.
Yeah.
And you could hit limitations maybe, but I do like the ability to use it outside of that function definition.
Mhm. So I think when I've used it before, I put it in like a global. So somebody was saying you have to go into multiple places. I usually just have a global reference to it. Uh, Another really use case for what I'm doing is like an icon component where I want to
Mm,
define the name of it. And I was looking because I pulled in in all of my remix work, I was looking at the epic stack that Kent put together, which by the way, he'll be on a week from Friday. So you guys should tune in then at 11 a.m. Central to talk about the epic stack and the conference he's putting together. But I ripped out the icon component that he has there, which is a really interesting component that he created as part of that stack. And some of it is you just drop all of your SVGs into a folder and then run a script on it, and it will generate the SVG sprite for you as well as a type file. And that is using basically the method that I described. I was looking to see how he did that, but it's like a bunch of strings, yeah, piped together,
hmm
and then you do get the IntelliSense when you try and
Okay.
use that component to know whether
Yeah.
that icon is an option or not.
Yep. I think we've got the best comment in the chat of all, which is if all that really matters is what works for you or the team, especially the team, right? Like
Oh
that's where
yeah,
it gets a little complicated is if you're super opinionated and you have a team and other people on the team are super
yeah.
opinionated. But yeah, as long as it works, that's what it comes down to.
Cool. Do you want to do picks and plugs, or do you have more?
Oh yeah. No, I don't, because I'm not
Okay.
prepared at all. What have I bought recently? What have I done?
I'll intro it. So the next section of the episode is our picks and plugs section, where we pick something that we like and plug something generally that we've worked on. So I'll go first. I tweeted about this. I bought a new toy lately. I bought an Ambernick XX35,
Yeah, I saw that.
which I used to have a Game Boy when I was a kid, and so I
Yeah.
bought the retro one. I got this on sale. I was like, I've not been on TikTok long, but they already know me. So this was on sale through the TikTok store for like $35, which was pretty great. I think now if you buy it through Amazon, it's closer to 60. But you can play all kinds of games on it and stuff like that. And my kids have enjoyed it. And it just makes my heart happy that, all the Game Boy games that I have as a kid that actually, I should share a picture. I went to my parents' house and pulled them all out this weekend. That they're
So
all
cool.
here. What's crazy is we laid them all out on the table. There were like, probably 30 or 40 different cartridges. And the fact that everything's running off of a micro SD card in the side,
Mhm.
and the fact that it's just all right there is pretty mind blowing. So I will pick that. I will plug the 2weekbuild.com. So this was the challenge that James and I were talking about. If you go there now, just enter in your email address and you'll get an email update. So within the next couple of days, you'll get additional information for the platform that we were talking about. So you can go through and participate with the leaderboard, be part of the custom Discord, all the things. So, and really you can participate whether you register or not. That's just going to give you community benefits. That's really the only purpose. So, but we would love to have you join us. 2weekbuild.com.
Very cool. What's your favorite couple of games that you play on there?
Oh, I'm just like a standard Mario,
Yeah,
Donkey
easy.
Kong, Zelda. Like
Yep.
those are my favorite. A lot of the games now, I'll be honest, I get lost in the 3D worlds.
Yep.
I'm like, I don't know where I'm at. I'm totally disoriented. So I love that the older games are just like these 2D worlds where I can just jump on top of enemies, or they're puzzles. I like the puzzle stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are my go-tos.
Yep. Same. Pokemon is the only one I would add. That was
Oh
huge part
yeah.
of my childhood. And is Pokemon on there? Do they have
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, they
Okay.
have all of them.
That's
Which
cool.
I don't know how they get around copyright.
I don't either.
It came
Yeah.
from China, so I don't know. I mean, there's nothing against China. I'm just saying that they have more
Oh, no.
relaxed copyright laws,
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's part of it.
I don't know either. But I saw that, and I've seen it on TikTok, and then I saw
Mhm.
yours, and I was very jealous. I was very excited for you. Um,
They have all of them. My son's gotten into the Pokemon stuff.
mhm.
I mean, he's always enjoyed it, but he's enjoyed
Yeah.
playing the game.
So the thing I did for a while in college, at least, was a little bit after I was playing on the Game Boy, and then I downloaded the emulators for the computer. And the number one benefit of that was I could speed up the runtime of the game,
Oh, nice.
so I could basically play it at 2 times speed. Because what takes a long time is like training your Pokemon.
Yes.
It takes forever to try to get them to level up and stuff. And so training was so much easier when I could do it at 2 times speed. Super cool.
I just never got over it. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't quite figure out with the Pokemon, but it's just like, oh, I'm just gonna attack, or it's just like, the same basic commands to try
Mhm.
and get through certain levels. So I guess that's kind of what you're talking about, is the training part was just the tedious, time consuming part.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to do like some sort of script that could train for you, and like just
Of
tackle,
course.
tackle, tackle, tackle. Anyway, um, I'll switch it up a little bit, and I'll go to my pick, which is one that I am overly excited about, and you'll be so glad to hear where I got it from.
Costco.
And that is the Blackstone. So I didn't actually know this about Blackstone. So it's like a griddle. It's like a grill, but it's like a griddle plate. And when I was thinking about this, a friend of mine was saying like, "Oh, do you really enjoy like taking care of cast iron skillets and stuff?" And I was like, "I don't know why you're asking that, but no, I've never really done that." And I didn't realize that a Blackstone is basically like like you have to take care of it like cast
Oh, yeah.
iron. So you have to
Uh-huh.
season it the first time, which
Yep.
I would have thought was like,
Salt.
no,
More
I
than
would have
that?
thought no. I would have thought you put like salt and pepper. It's not about
Uh-huh.
like actual seasonings. It's about like basically burning a layer of oil onto it that
Oh,
becomes like a protective thing, and then does absorb seasonings like and flavors and stuff
okay.
from when you cook. So I didn't know this. This is a whole new thing.
Interesting. Well, I obviously didn't know it either.
Yeah, I
I
know,
don't think
right?
we even have one.
Yeah, well, I have a cast iron skillet that I've never seasoned because I didn't know anything about that. So
Mhm.
maybe I'll do it now. But we got, as you might imagine, a pretty good refund check from Costco from having the executive membership or whatever. So got my 36-inch Blackstone for $400, well, for free through the refund.
Well, that's a
And
huge refund.
well, the refund was like $1,400, but that's
What?
besides the point. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I know.
No wonder
Well,
you love Costco.
yes. Yeah. And I just looked online, and if you go to like blackstoneproducts.com, that same one is it's on sale for $549,
Oh,
and I got
wow.
it for 400 at Costco. So shout out to Costco.
Wow.
And we had people over for dinner for my birthday. We made tacos on the Blackstone. The next day, I made fajitas on the Blackstone. Day
Wow.
before that, I made pancakes and eggs for my nephews on the Blackstone. It is absolutely amazing. It's one of my very favorite things, and it's been a ton of fun to have. And I can't wait to do like Philly cheesesteaks and like hibachi and all sorts of stuff. So
Oh, wow.
I am definitely a believer and super excited about it.
That's awesome.
And I'll plug dealsfordevs.com. So this is a platform where the goal is to aggregate all the best deals for developers on courses and tools and conferences, and do giveaways through there as well. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get access to preferences to choose what type of content you're interested in. And in the next couple of months, we'll start to send out the monthly emails with all that curated content for you based on what's on the site. So check it out at dealsfordevs.com.
Very cool.
Anything you want to add before we
I don't think
drop out?
so.
Cool.
Just note to self, go get a Costco membership.
Go get a Costco membership and spend way too much money at Costco, and then you'll
Well,
get free stuff.
we're big believers in points. It's
Same.
the credit cards. So I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? If you're gonna
Yep.
buy it anyways, why not get money
Earn
back?
money. Yeah. And we have
Mhm.
the Costco credit card, so we earn some extra points for that too.
Awesome. Good for you. Good for you. And if
And
Costco would like to sponsor,
yeah, shout out, send Costco
send
our way.
all inquiries this way.
Yep. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up this episode. If you're listening in Podcatcher, consider leaving a rating and review if you enjoyed the episode to help other people find the podcast and continue to allow us to have amazing, fun conversations with ourselves, and also to bring on fun guests to learn from their experiences, things they've built, etc. So thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
In the meantime, that's all we got.
In the meantime, that's all we got. Forgot that part. Also, there's like, I think it's just crazy windy, but like
Ew.
it's like noisy windy. I was distracted by the noise from the wind.
I thought it was Jess over there that we were licking.
Nah.
We had a terrible storm. Well, just a lot of rain come through this morning, like right as the kids got on the bus.
You did? Okay. Oh, because we had weather
Yeah.
that was east of us already this morning. That's
Yeah.
probably made
Yep,
it to
got
you.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense. Are you you don't have any traveling scheduled, do you? Conference stuff?
We are taking the kids to Vegas for spring break, which Henry's like, you need to work on your marketing. And I'm like, no, this is the point. I just love seeing people be like,
The shock and awe value of like
we're
taking
taking
kids
them
to Vegas.
We're taking them to the Grand Canyon and the Hoover Dam, and
Okay.
it'll be educational.
And to do a little bit of gambling.
We have a few shows scheduled that'll be fun. So
That's cool.
yeah,
If you
that's
show like magic shows or like perform like
We're
music.
doing a couple of Cirque shows. We're doing the Beatles Cirque show. And
What is a Cirque show? Like Cirque du
Cirque du
Soleil?
Soleil.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I think we're doing the Blue Man Group.
That's cool. I really want to see a magic show in Vegas. That's like one of my it sounds weird, but it's one of my bucket list things. Is specifically a magic show in Vegas.
There is a puppeteer that Henry wanted to see, and I think the main reason he wanted to see it was the kids saw it's not really a puppeteer. What is it? It's a person that has the puppet and doesn't move their mouth. The word is I can't do words anymore. Anyways, there's one of those
Ventriloquist.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That we might go see. There was one on
cool.
a cruise that we saw, and the kids like that was their favorite show, and we're like, "Are you kidding?" Like that was the B/C rated act,
Yeah.
you know, but that's the one that they love.
Whatever.
So I don't know. But, you know,
Yeah.
I can't my bucket list, I can't it's just always it's not gonna happen. My bucket list items to see Celine Dion in Vegas, and she's no longer performing.
Is she done? Is she?
Yeah.
She's still alive though.
She's still alive. She's
Okay.
just ill. She can't do it. It's like her
Okay.
body doesn't work anymore.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't remember what the condition is, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other potential bucket list items that could be of relevance?
I do want to see Taylor Swift in concert. I just feel like that would be a good show.
Yeah, I imagine it would be too. Sweet. All right. Well, I guess we'll actually get off. Thanks everyone for checking in and for I think the TypeScript enum stuff was the most comments we got. Which was me just like ranting for several minutes. I guess so, yeah.
I love it.
Just
I love it. It's like I didn't know we had
laissez-faire.
people watching until you
I
start
know.
talking about enums.
I know. It's funny. But anyway, it's been fun. If
It's
you aren't
spicy.
already and you're watching it is spicy. If you're watching on Twitch, consider following so you get notifications for when we come back. We do this once a week at the same time, and we'll have an extra special episode next Friday with Kenzie Dodds to talk about the Epic stack.
Mhm.
Is that what it's called? Yes. Okay.
Mhm.
There's also Kelvin from Discord has the boring stack, and his idea for that is like the boring stack is the stuff that works that like doesn't seem fun, but it's been working for a long time, and I think that's a
awesome.
great branding too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Cool. I'm gonna raid everyone over to finite singularity. Out, I think. Oh no, I can't do that because I'm not logged in as compressed. That's not my channel. Never mind.
Do you need credentials?
Yeah, we can figure it out later.
Okay.
So no raid today, maybe next time. But good to see you all. We'll be back next week with another episode. Hope you have a good rest of the week. Have a great weekend. Thanks, everyone.